Hi, I'm Di Garris and I'm going to take you through some of the top tips that our clients ask us most often about investing in residential property. And the very first thing that I'm going to introduce you to is, first of all, the question we get asked most often: what if I don't get a tenant? Some of the things that you need to know, first of all, this is the most common fear that investors face, and we hear it all the time, so you shouldn't feel troubled that it's a question that's occurring to you. The importance of research, certainly accessing research from your property advisor, but also you undertaking your own research to ensure that the information that you're receiving is consistent with other information out there in the marketplace. Affordability, location factors, the importance of choosing a good property manager, clear communication with your property manager, and having a contingency plan are all things that I'm going to speak to you about. First of all, that biggest concern. What are some of the things you need to take into consideration? First of all, when you are looking for a tenant, what are the seasonal variations in the marketplace? Is it the beginning of summer? Is it in the middle of winter when it's stormy, cold, and it's very hard to get people out to an open house? Is it the beginning of the year when people might be transferring from job to job? Take into consideration what time of the year and how those seasonal variations might impact on how easy it is to get a tenant. The second thing is, what's the short-term trends that you need to be aware of? We'd like everything to be consistent and neat and tidy when we're planning how to invest, but that's not real life. Is there an oversupply at the moment, or is there an undersupply of available dwellings for tenanting at the moment? Certainly these are one of the things that you should be discussing with your property manager. So understand what the short-term supply and demand issues are in the area that you've invested in. And remember that investing in property is a long-term consideration, and cash flow that is consistent and long-term must underpin your selection. So consequently, you want to be in an area that's going to be high in demand for tenanting year after year after year. And that's the most critical thing to ensure that you're going to get a tenant. You're going to be in an area where tenants are looking to locate, and particularly in emerging growth corridors of our capital cities. The importance of research. Because investing in property is a long-term approach, you need to make sure that you've accessed good, current and accurate research before you've made your decision. You need to go along and educate yourself. You need to read. You need to make sure that you feel comfortable with the decision you're making and you've asked all those questions and got answers that made sense to you. And then make sure that you do your own due diligence. When you undertake your own research, is that consistent with the information that has been shared with you by your property advisor? Affordability. If you want to get a tenant, it's got to be affordable for tenants in the marketplace. So consider, what's the average wage in the suburb that you might be purchasing in? What's going to be the yield that you're going to achieve for that property? Are you actually looking at a price that is really outside what the market would tolerate? Listen to a good manager who has experience in the specific geographic area that you're investing in, because they've got the expert knowledge regarding what is the going rent, what's the market prepared to pay. And how does this affect your gross yield? Remember that you want to have at least a yield between 4 and 6% to make your investment a good one. So do the calculations. Consider the location factors. If you're trying to rent this property, you've got to have factors that are going to be attractive to prospective tenants. So you've got to consider, what are prospective tenants looking for? It's not just the price point, it's also access to childcare, schools in the area, transport, recreation, lifestyle facilities, colleges, shopping facilities. How close are those things? Because they become critical in you making a very sound decision and attracting tenants. And what are the percentage of owner-occupiers in the area? Because it's a long-term investment decision you're making, you don't want a situation where there are dozens and dozens and dozens of properties available to tenants in your area. You want to see a high percentage of owner-occupiers, preferably over 80% in any area you're considering. Choose a good property manager. A good property manager can give you great advice. Prepare the questions that you'd like to ask a prospective manager, and we can certainly help our clients with that. What are the services that they're going to provide to you, and what's the cost for those services? And how are they going to market your property, and what's the timeline that you need them to meet? All of those things are extremely important and can make the acquisition of a good tenant on a regular basis so much easier for you. Communicate clearly with your property manager. How often do you want them to communicate with you, and about what issues? Where can you get assistance about this? And again, that can come into the research that you undertake. You might want information on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, but make sure that both parties, you and your manager, are clear about that. And finally, your contingency plan. Have you discussed this with your broker prior to settlement, so that you might have a line of credit or other facility, so that if you needed to dip into some funds to cover costs whilst you are without a tenant, that this isn't going to put any financial hardship on you. Make sure you've got appropriate landlord's insurance in place, as well as other insurances, including your own personal life insurance, trauma insurance if that is appropriate. Discuss that with your insurance broker. What changes to your cash flow may occur in the future that you may have forgotten to consider? These could be educational expenses for your children. They could be travel plans that you want to have with the family. You need to make sure that you have a buffer that allows you, should something occur, perhaps an unexpected activity occur, that you've got the opportunity to undertake those while still having appropriate cash flow from your tenant to keep your investment ticking along nicely. We hope you'll enjoy us next time for our next top tip on property investing.